Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports Soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports. Joined today, as always, by my colleague Lisa Roman, NWSL analyst and broadcaster. On today's episode, we have an NWSL recap, decision day scenarios in play. The playoffs are set. Portland Thorns, Oil Rain, Washington Spirit, Chicago Red Stars, Gotham FC, North Carolina Courage, all into the playoffs. Houston, Orlando, Louisville, Kansas City officially eliminated. What's next? We have a whole playoff picture ahead for you all. A quick reminder to follow us on Twitter at Attacking Third. Also, head on over to our YouTube page and hit subscribe to never miss a new video, interview, or whenever we go live. Plus, you can catch great extended NWSL highlights. Head on over to youtube.com/Attacking Third and hit subscribe. Happy Halloween, Lisa. How are you?
Woof, woof. I had to give
That's
something
right.
to our podcast
We're,
listeners dressed as a dog today.
we're coming correct. Fully like into the Halloween spirit. Cats, dog, we're like into it. We wanted to have some fun to start off the episode. Let's pull off the costumes though and put on our NWSL hats, Lisa, because we got a lot to talk about here in this
Whew.
episode. Ton of games. When we previewed this, it was like massive decision day scenarios for each day, possibly. And it turned out to be the case for a little bit, honestly. For all of them. It was like, oh well, actually, maybe, just maybe, the playoff picture will look a certain type of way or be determined much sooner than we think because there were games taking place on Friday, or excuse me, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this week. And of course, that was not the case, Lisa. Of course, we had to wait for the playoff picture to sort of be settled on Sunday. Like,
Of
unbelievable.
course, of course. It's just how the season's going, let alone does it have to come down to the final weekend. But like you said, the way matches turned out between Thursday, nothing determined, Friday, Saturday, it did ultimately come down to Sunday's matches, which it makes it a little bit more exciting. I'm going to say it keeps everyone tuned in. It keeps the players a little more interested. And I know heading into the Washington versus Houston match, head coach for Houston, James Clarkson, said that if the Houston didn't need to play for a win, he was going to sit some of his players and make sure they get rested before the playoffs. But because everything was on the line in that matchup, we saw lots of good turnout from Houston. We'll get all into it, but I loved how this final regular season weekend turned out, and now I'm even more excited for the playoff picture based on all of the results that happened this past weekend.
We're gonna get into all of it. We're gonna go over all of this for everybody in about 2 acts here, because it really was just sort of uh, day by day, sort of seeing how things were developing for the league in terms of the playoff picture heading into this weekend. There were still 3 spots up for grabs of the potential 6 NWSL playoff spots for with 4 teams sort of vying for position over those 3 spots. So we were very excited and we thought maybe, just maybe, New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC would take care of things for themselves on Thursday. But of course, Racing Louisville had other plans. I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. The eliminated team sort of taking on a bit of that spoiler role, absolutely wrecking dreams, or at the very least postponing them a little bit. But these 2 teams played out to a 1-1 draw, Lisa, and ultimately what that meant was that Gotham FC did not clinch their spot for the NWSL playoff as of that Thursday. But if Manu getting that first goal the lone goal in that game for Gotham very, very early on, and it sort of felt the end of the tempo that was coming out from this Gotham side in this match. Sort of felt like, oh, they know what the job is, they know what the assignment is, and are they going to deliver? And it sort of looked as if it was going to happen, but they didn't get another one. And enough happened there where all of a sudden Louisville sort of played themselves into the game. It's like they sort of were like, you know what? Not on our pitch, not on our field. That's not happening here tonight. And this second half just sort of turn things a little bit. CC Kaiser went and got that equalizer right around the 50th or 52nd minute, and that's just sort of how it panned out. And Gotham had to wait some more to wait to go ahead and potentially clinch themselves a spot. It was a very exciting way to start off the NWSL weekend of games for sure.
It really was. And you and I both had Gotham pegged to nail this win on Thursday evening, clinch a playoff spot, really just make their weekend a bit easier, make things a little bit more ironed out heading into Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, technically Thursday is midweek game. If we're talking about that, it was a makeup game only. And also these two squads knowing that they were going to have to face again on Sunday, which does really change how you look at this mindset, because it's only a few days rest and then you're back on the pitch against the same opponents. But this match really a lot of credit to Racing Louisville for coming back in this one. CC Kaiser notching the goal around the 50 or so minute, just after the 50-minute mark of this match. But stat wise, Gotham had 19 shots throughout this match and Louisville had 10. Or excuse me, 9. I'm sorry. So a 10 goal differential there. That's really big. That's really big. That shows what Gotham was doing. And a lot of credit to Racing Louisville's defense, because they held that off. They held it to just 1 for Gotham in this match. I think a bit of a bitter taste in Gotham's mouth at the end of this one, knowing that they were so close to clinching and then ultimately really letting it go. Honestly, it was a bit of like a downfall for Gotham when you looked at this, but really for Racing Louisville, I think proud moment for them in a sense, because out of contention for the playoffs, but they took a page out of Kansas City's book and they can still disrupt things moving forward throughout that match on Thursday. And then even looking to Sunday, they were like, we could still have implications coming into play Sunday, but ultimately a 1-1 tie between Gotham and Racing, but Anamanu still pushing at this point in the weekend on Thursday evening, still pushing. She could have been in the Golden Boot race, working her way up there with her goal throughout this match. But 1-1 tie for Gotham. So we both take L's on this prediction.
Yeah, that was like one of the first things too that my head went to at sort of that final whistle. I was like, geez, I'm pretty sure Liz and I both chose Gotham in this one. So we're going to get off to a great start with this weekend slate of games. But you know what? It opened the door, and let's get into this next game a little bit. With Gotham not clinching, they had this extra game in hand, even though it was rescheduled, right? So finally, when they played this Thursday match, it was like, oh, all of these teams are basically like level on games played. Finally, it's taken to the last week of the season for that to sort of to sort of pan out, but it wasn't just about clinching a playoff spot for Gotham. With their extra game in hand, there was potential for possibly leapfrogging themselves into maybe a bye week, a third place or a fourth place, a home playoff, right? And so not only did it not clinch, that playoff spot, it opened the door for some other teams to do some stuff. And that happened in this next game on Friday's match. It was Orlando Pride versus Chicago Red Stars. Chicago Red Stars on the road take the win in this one, 1-0 on a goal from Kalia Watt. With that goal, it clinched the playoff and the potential for a home playoff. Whether or not it was going to be as a 3rd seed or 4th seed was still yet to be determined at the time, because the results from the other games had to come into play. But at that moment, they clinched their spot, and they knew that they were going to host a home playoff game in some capacity. And that's what happens with this final week. It was just, you were watching these games knowing these different scenarios, and if one team doesn't follow through on their end, it allowed other teams to go in and try to pave a different way for themselves. And for Chicago, perhaps not a lot of great stuff or good vibes going into this match, really, on both sides. There was a pretty lengthy and kind of uncomfortably long injury report for both of these teams heading into this match, Lisa. So you had on Orlando Pride side there was going to be no Martha available, no Taylor Korniak alongside Jade Moore, and that's just some. And then with questionables, with Ashton Harris, Ellie Krieger, obviously nagging injuries that they have quite frankly been probably playing through throughout the duration of this season. So on Chicago side, having to deal with some COVID protocol things, having to deal with general illness, and also some questionable. So it was like, gosh, it's like, what kind of game were these two teams going to play out? It almost sort of felt at one point as it had very much like the feelings in the making of like a potential draw, if not low scoring, absolutely scoreless, which also in the scenarios would have been enough for Chicago to sort of just get a point and clinch. But Kalia Watt, other ideas for sure in this one. She's had a really, really, really big work rate for Chicago over the last probably 3-4 weeks or so. And great ball through from Morgan Gautrat, the goal assisted by her in the 65th minute, just to sort of feed Watt in and then get this banger of a goal. It was a great one. Check out the extended highlights, y'all. You'll find it there on attacking third. But it was just enough. It was just what Chicago needed at the exact right time. They're a very organized defensive team, and honestly, that's sort of what it looked like. It played out to a big moment for Chicago's defense to shine. Center back duo Sarah Gordon earning the Iron Woman for Chicago Red Stars, playing every single minute of every match this season. And it just sort of, again, we had another piece of the puzzle, Lisa, in this one. I know you were calling the game in this one. I'm sure you were like checking off the different scenarios as this game was evolving.
Yes, it was me, the whole murder mystery in the basement with the images and the scenarios with the red string connecting it all. Yes, completely. This game, interesting because as you mentioned, so many injuries and players missing heading into this match. But looking at it big picture, it almost evened out. I'm gonna say, based on who Chicago was missing and who Orlando was missing, and having to have players slide in. I'm not saying player for player it evened out, but across the board, I think it evened out. Big player for two small players, and things like that. And because of that, Tony Presley for Orlando was slotted into the back line. And she's a player that has had really good moments, but she tends to make mistakes in the back line. And when I heard and saw that she was in the starting lineup, I was a little bit concerned, knowing that Ashlyn Harris was not going to be in goal. And McLeod does a fantastic job, but also having Presley in the back line can be sometimes a bit of a liability for this Orlando team. And I think she did a fantastic job. She proved me wrong throughout this match. One or two mistakes, but frankly, you're expected that when you don't get consistent 90-minute matches throughout the regular season. But this game, really, really a chess battle between these two sides. And because of all the injuries, speaking with the coaches ahead of time, ahead of this match, head coach for Chicago, Rory Dames, didn't really know how he was going to attack against Orlando, because traditionally, a little insight into Rory Dames and his incredibly smart soccer mind, he looks at his opponents and he finds the weakest link and then he tries to attack them. Or that's where the side of the field that Chicago will press, and they split the field vertically and they'll shove all their players onto that side and win the ball back over their opponent's weakest link. Now, due to all these injuries for Orlando, Rory Dames didn't know where that weak link was going to be. He didn't know what was going to happen until he saw the starting lineup and heard who Orlando was going to play with. Now, Chicago, a really intelligent team with a lot of intelligent soccer players, they can make that last minute adjustment 5 minutes before a kick. Because of that, I think that's what made the first 15-20 minutes of this match so intriguing, because you could see the brains of the players working as they figured out their opponents and they figured out where the space on the pitch was and how they could attack and really be effective in the game that each side wanted to play. Ultimately, the goal from Watt being the game winner in this match. But I'm going to lean a little bit on stats here. Total shots for Orlando were 6 in this match. Total shots for Chicago were 17. That's a pretty big difference there between the sides. Chicago really putting a lot of pressure on, not always the most well taken or most clinically taken shots, but hey, they were still getting the ball off and putting pressure on, and they got the win over at Orlando, which is honestly what needed to happen. And defensively, they quieted LaRue and Alex Morgan and Jody Taylor up top for the most part throughout this match. So bright future in the playoffs for Chicago as they end on a high note, I'm going to say, despite all the injuries and lack of personnel, end on a high note, at least with a win. Before I let you move on to the next match, I had Chicago winning this one, and
Hey,
you had it as a draw, so I beat you there.
hey, I'm a winner either way. I get to cover a home playoff in my hometown, so that's going to be exciting. Let's take a look at Saturday's fixture. We had a doubleheader on Saturday. Kansas City hosting OL Reign. The Reign take this one 3-0. Let's just hop right to it. A very cool thing happened in this game, Lisa. This was another game that you were on a call for. Kansas City has been operating as Kansas City NWSL for their first inaugural season in the league. And they had a quick introduction to the league. They sort of came in the midnight hour, right? As uh, the league was trying to sort of see what the next step was going to be with the former Utah Royals franchise. And Kansas City NWSL, an ownership group with Angie and Chris Long and Brittany Matthews, quite frankly, an ownership group that has been keeping their eye on NWSL, found themselves getting in a little bit earlier than maybe they had anticipated. And so this team, with the quick turnaround, had been operating under a temporary crest with really cool colors, but no official name yet. So a very cool thing that has been happening for this Kansas City side in this second half of the season is that they have been putting together some fun results at home. They went on a very long undefeated home streak, and then down these final stretch of weeks, they were really playing the role of spoiler, absolutely bringing the chaos to these other top tier teams who were really in competition for these playoff spots initially. So a lot of exciting stuff that this team and this franchise were building towards the future. And they had a series of really cool announcements, and they announced that they are going to eventually have the first of its kind, a NW built only for NWSL stadium on the riverfront in Kansas City there. And right after that announcement, in halftime, in the middle of this game that you were calling, Lisa, they unveiled their brand new crest and their brand new club name. How was the atmosphere there in terms of being a witness, in terms of kind of getting all of the feedback from that there?
Huge congratulations to the Kansas City Current. That is their new name. It was exciting, especially to be involved. And they put out an incredible little promo video that they played live in the stadium, and we were able to air at halftime of the broadcast. And really well done. There's water rippling throughout because the new stadium that's being built right on the riverfront, the Missouri River, right by the water, is incredible. So because of that, lots of thematics of the water throughout the video. The players, even when they were doing their like cool solo shots for like the media for this video, standing in water or graphics, I don't know, it looked like they were standing in water. I am so pleased and happy for Kansas City with how they executed this rollout, how this franchise came into this year with a temporary club, temporary crest, temporary name in Kansas City, NWSL, and kind of said, hey, this isn't it for us. We have more coming. We just need a little bit of time to nail it correctly. And that's exactly what they did. So the Current, the new name, which we were actually able to use in the second half of the broadcast, the players went in for halftime. They did the show in the stadium. We did the show on the broadcast. The players changed their kits, changed their top jersey kits to be wearing the new crest for Kansas City Current. And then as broadcasters, we got to call them the Current in the second half. And so many times when teams roll out new logos, new crests, there's so much meaning that goes in behind it. And sometimes it's a little fluffy. There's some fluff in the meaning, but frankly, there's no fluff in the meaning behind this Kansas City crest. If you haven't had a chance to see it yet, please go check it out. It's everywhere. I know Sandra wrote a piece for it on CBS Sports. Go to Kansas City Current, their new Twitter page, their website. It's really cool. They stuck with the teal colors, the bright red color, and then they added in a dash of navy blue, which I love that, but so much meaning behind the crest. There's 2 stars on it representing the 2 states that Kansas City sits between, Missouri and Kansas. There's a 3-river ripple effect on the crest, which is the wave and the river current that courses through the heart of America, which is Kansas City. A traditional crest shape, as before it was just a circle for Kansas City NWSL. Really fantastic job. And I think the players are proud to be the Current and proud to wear the Current crest.
It was exciting to see because it happened during halftime, and the game at this point, Lisa, is not gone away. At this point,
No.
All Rain is still figuring things out on the road. They're playing for something that's very important, even though they sort of been in this top tier position, number 2. They hadn't actually clinched and secured their bye week. And going into halftime, just before then, right around just past the half-hour mark, they finally got on the scoreboard. They had some struggle in terms of actually getting the ball in the back of the net, despite looking good in the attack. And it came off of an own goal off Kiki Pickett. So a little bit of a bummer, I'm sure, on that part. No defender wants to be on the end of an own goal for sure. But a 1-0 deficit into halftime, if you're the home side, is not something that is, world comes falling down. The game is still a possible steal at that point, right? And what we've been seeing from Kansas City is like their ability to like I said, like we've been saying for weeks now, play spoiler. And I was kind of wondering, I was like, gosh, I'm like, they're coming out here with these new kits, new crests. Like, are we about to see are we about
Fire.
to witness the chaos? Like, is that about to happen? But it did not happen. Oh, Rain was like, congrats on the crest. We got things to do. It was like over before it even began. Eugenie Le Sommer, again, continuing her ridiculous form, picking up 2 goals in this second half, coming early too. I mean, we're talking the opening 5 minutes of the second half. Beautiful assist from Rosabelle. Le Sommer gets the go-ahead goal 2-0. And then once again, just past the hour mark, Eugenie Le Sommer, assisted by Megan Rapinoe, another one. Lisa, you mentioned Chicago, a team, entering the playoffs on a high. I mean, we got to look at this game from OL Reign and probably echo similar sentiments, right?
You have to, especially when you look at the own goal. Although it was the first one for OL Reign to get on the board, they had applied so much pressure to Kansas City's backline. Considering the first time that OL Reign went to Legends Field to take on Kansas City and they lost, they played pretty bad in that game. They just looked fumbled and jumbled all over the place. This was an entirely new OL Reign team stepping onto Legends Field, which I expected. With Laura Harvey and already having played on this pitch, and understanding the type of team that Kansas City has become over the last few weeks in playing spoiler, and understanding how they've found a bit more of their identity, playing more of a diamond in the midfield, and really catering to the personnel that Hugh Williams has on his squad. Because of that, OL Reign did a better job scouting. They did a better job of saying, no matter what the field conditions, no matter how small the pitch is, how bouncy it is, how hard the turf is, anything that's happening, the light show, the new crest, we're going to play our game. And that's exactly what OL Reign did. So they forced that own goal, Sofia Huerta just whipping crosses into the box. And I hope she gets the assist on that. I should have checked. I don't know, because that's who sent this cross into the box that just made it too difficult for Pickett to handle. And it's unlucky for Pickett. I guarantee you she will not make that mistake next season for Kansas City. Just poor defending and body positioning on a beautiful ball into the box for Huerta. And because of that goal, it changed the mentality for OL Reign a little bit. They had a little bit of relief for all the hard work they were putting in throughout that first half. And then I imagine at halftime, it was like, hey, we're in this. Like, we need to score more goals. We actually want to be on the scorer sheet, not just have an own goal for Kansas City. And that's exactly what Le Sommer did. Came out fiery. I was I was pushing for her to get the first hat trick of the NWSL season. She did not. Who knows? Maybe in the playoffs she'll get one. She was very, very close though. This match, pretty fun to watch and pretty fun to call. And even though Kansas City losing, not getting on the board, having an own goal, the crest reveal and the name reveal made it really special for Kansas City. And that didn't rain on their parade, because they ended the season on such a high note with the rebrand and selling merch and everything going just really smoothly on their side of things with the announcement, the rebrand, and how it was perceived by fans across the league.
Absolutely something to build on, and honestly, and quite frankly, this is the playoff picture episode, so it was another piece of the playoff picture puzzle that got sort of checked off and put into place. Chicago the evening before, clinching their spot, clinching some type of home playoff, and then Rain doing their thing, clinching number 2, clinching that bye week, uh, setting up some interesting scenarios for the second game on Saturday. Portland Thorns versus North Carolina Courage. North Carolina Courage needing to pick up a win in order to sort of ensure that they would have a possible spot in the playoffs. Portland Thorns are Shield winners. Interim CEO Marla Messing presented the NWSL Shield to the Portland Thorns in the beginning of this game for winning the regular season, and it just sort of had like the makings of another type of match that was gonna leave us wanting more, and it did in a number of different ways. It was a scoreless draw, but this game, Lisa, starts off a certain kind of way where you're like, oh no, it's gonna be some real old-fashioned like NWSL after dark action. North Carolina Courage come out swinging early, almost get a goal in the opening 5 minutes, but it's ruled offside. And then we start to see a very well played out game between these two sides, and you see North Carolina the entire time from the beginning to the end trying to press to ensure, like, you know, that they are in control of their playoff destiny. Unfortunately, neither side ended up picking up a goal. Not necessarily a bad thing for Portland Thorns. Their defense could hang their hat on that type of result. They set a new NWSL record in terms of shutout minutes, so that was very exciting, I'm sure, for them on a night that they got the Shield. But for North Carolina, the draw meant that the next day they had to find themselves rooting for the Washington Spirit because, again, while we're talking about all these playoff scenarios that we chatted a little bit about in the preview and are recapping here now, North Carolina Courage and Houston Dash were tied on points heading into this weekend of games, with Houston Dash having the tiebreakers over North Carolina. So if not a win, it would have had to, like, and they only got a draw. That means they absolutely needed help from Washington Spirits, because if Houston either just got a draw or win, they were absolutely in. So exciting stuff in this one. And it just meant that we had to wait some more, Lisa. We kept having to wait for the playoff picture to be finalized.
I think that's really the best thing about this weekend. We both picked Portland to win. Clearly they did not. They had the draw in this one, but a lot of celebrations for Portland, earning the Shield, and then the Rose City Riveters awarding Angela Salem their Supporters Player of the Year, which was a huge honor. I know Mark Parsons talked so highly of Angela Salem in the post conference, just saying how much she's done for the middle of the pitch, and for Portland throughout this year, on and off the pitch, really, with her leadership, but her ability on the field to just control things. I think it's so fitting that this game ends in a scoreless draw, with the goal being called back from North Carolina early to start the match. I think if that goal counted, obviously it would have been a different match because there would have been a goal, but it really, mindset wise and momentum wise, it would have changed everything for North Carolina because Portland had so much pressure and they did really well defensively against North Carolina. So if North Carolina could ensure that they had that opening goal that was ultimately called back, would have been a different outcome and would have been, I think, a North Carolina win, honestly, if they could have done that. Ultimately, doesn't happen. 0-0 draw. And it makes for a very exciting Sunday in the NWSL for the playoff picture.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into it right now after a quick break. Sunday, fun day, another decision day. Washington Spirit versus Houston Dash, Gotham FC versus Racing Louisville in another rematch of Thursday's match. We got to start with this Washington Spirit and Houston Dash game, because really this was the game that finalized everything for the playoffs moving forward. Lisa, Washington Spirit hosting this one at home. They were still chasing a home playoff. They were at the time of this match taking place in the 4th seed. Houston Dash in a scenario where they absolutely needed to win or draw. A win automatically meant they were in. A draw meant they were in based on the tiebreakers with North Carolina Courage. So watching this game kick off and sort of see the tempo that both teams were establishing in this one, it almost sort of felt like, is this a bit of a playoff preview that we're getting here? That was the vibe that I had in watching this one, because let me tell you, for about 60 to 70 minutes, it kind of gave off that tempo for sure. We saw Houston in the Spirit kind of exchanging waves of momentum in this one. But honestly, it came down to a little bit of a tactical issue in this one. Lisa, head coach James Clarkson even going on record in his post game about the tactical shift that they had planned and prepared for not working out, quite frankly. And then he said that that's on the coaching, that's on him, and that he's got to take accountability for that. 0-0 scoreline for these two for quite an extended period of time in this game, Lisa, before that deadlock gets broken after a tactical shift where it just sort of looked like the Houston Dash were made some substitutions to sort of look like just to kind of close out a game with about 20 minutes or so left. Jasmine Spencer having a really good game for this Houston Dash side involved in the attack, comes off, makes way for Megan Oyster. Sort of looks like this team's getting back into a 5-back, and as soon, just minutes after the substitution is made, you have the rookie Trinity Rodman on the receiving end of a great ball from Sam Staub, nails the lone goal in this one. And who would have thought an 18-year-old in her rookie season was going to have the defining moment for how this playoff picture was going to look moving forward, because that was all she wrote. That is exactly what Trinity Rodman did on this day. The lone goal is all that it took. You saw Houston Dash try to make an effort to all they needed to get the draw in order to go ahead and find themselves in the playoffs, but that didn't happen. Instead, on the end of elimination, disappointing the reigning 2020 Challenge Cup champions, unfortunately falling out on the final day of the regular season of playoff contention. And with the win, it meant that the Spirit locked up the 3rd seed and will host a playoff game. What a moment, Lisa. It was pretty dope.
Dope. I love that word for it. It was such a moment. And you said, who would have thought Trinity Rodman? Honestly, I kind of thought it was going to be her because of how, I'm not just saying that because it was her. I thought it was going to be her because she is a player that is smart. She's a very smart player. And when Houston made those tactical decisions to play 5 in the back, which I'm glad that James Clarkson can own up to that and say, hey, that's my bad, because it was. And it also wasn't executed as smoothly as it should have been and as swiftly, players knowing exactly where they need to be defensive. Because how the heck does Trinity Rodman score when you're supposed to have 5 in the back? Now, because of that, Trinity Rodman, you know what's happening. These players know each other. And when you see that substitute being made, and Trinity Rodman especially, who plays against defenders and knows their weaknesses, knows how to pick on them because she is such an intelligent soccer player. She saw that switch happening, tactical switch for Houston to go more defensive. And she saw that it wasn't organized enough. And she said, this is my moment. I'm going to sit between center back duo. And she gets on the back shoulder of Abby Dahlkemper and it's so clinical. The finish is so clinical. That's what she had been waiting for. There are certain players that live for the big moments, and in Carly Lloyd and all her hoopla of retirement and her conversations about it, she is a player that lives for those moments. Trinity Rodman is a player that lives for those moments when they can take the whole team on their back and they can put the game away. And that was Trinity Rodman's moment, and she deserves it because it was a smart play. It was a great decision from her. The shot was beautiful and it works. Washington Spirit clinched third because of that Trinity Rodman goal. But before that goal happened, it was really a back and forth match for Houston and Washington. And so much credit we have to give to the goalkeepers, because Jane Campbell for Houston and Aubrey Bledsoe for Washington made fantastic saves throughout this match. There were so many good chances. Haley Hansen, Sophie Schmidt, Rachel Daly had a few pretty good ones. Ashley Hatch, Sanchez, Rodman had many good opportunities. So 5 saves to end the night for Bledsoe and 4 for Campbell. They kept their team in this match until it was a man-up opportunity and just Rodman against Campbell, and Rodman puts it away. Houston out after this game. A tough decision for James Clarkson to try to go for the tie in this one, and I bet he won't be doing that next season if it comes down to this, because it was looking bright for Houston there for a while throughout this season. But hey, I love when it's tight, and this is how things play out at the end of it. And I couldn't have dreamt this up 2 weeks ago, how it was going down, but there we go.
You live and you learn. I guess we'll see what happens with the Houston Dash in the offseason, and looking ahead to next season. Meant they were out, so that meant that North Carolina Courage was in. Lynn Williams with the Twitter reactions saying thank you to the Washington Spirit for the help. So the playoff picture was set with Portland, Oil Rain, Washington Spirit, Chicago, Gotham, North Carolina Courage. And while this game took place, there was another game also taking place, Gotham FC versus Racing Louisville, the rematch of Thursday, ending in another 1-1 draw between these two teams. And at this point, you got to say Gotham FC obviously paying attention to the scenarios. Players are tuned into, we're tuned into these decision day type scenarios on each of these match days. Obviously, Lynn Williams with the reaction on Twitter, right, and online, and then seeing Gotham kind of come out in the second half and sort of having the smiles on their faces and sort of knowing like, okay, we're into, let's just get out here and ball a little bit. That was sort of the vibe that we were watching. And maybe, quite frankly, possibly leading to a number of in-game adjustments in scenarios, because within this game, there were a couple individual like awards like that could have been chased by this team. Margaret Purse, in contention for the Golden Boot with 9 goals, and at the conclusion of the Washington Spirit game meant that Ashley Hatch had ended her regular season with 10 goals. So Margaret Purse with the 9 goals, and then obviously Anumanu kind of right behind them with the 8 goals. But we saw substitutions happening for this Gotham FC side relatively early in that second half, bringing on players like Jennifer Kuto, Erica Skrosky, Paige Monahan, bringing somebody off in Ifeoma Manu, and then having Margaret Purse coming off, right just past the hour mark as well. So just sort of kind of like I was hoping that maybe there would still be a little bit of drama to watch or some other reasons to watch in this game. And once the playoff picture got settled, I think people were looking for other things within this match. And that kind of got ruled out pretty quickly as well. So by the 65th minute, you had the other 2 players kind of in contention for that race coming off as well. Perhaps maybe, the coaching staff looking ahead a little bit, wanting to make sure that 2 of their best attackers on the team are able to come off and get limited minutes in that one. Carly Lloyd included in the substitutions as well. She got them up pretty early in the second half in the 53rd minute with an assist from Elizabeth Eddy, and she eventually coming off the pitch as well. But her final game in New Jersey for Gotham FC ended with a goal. I think that's something that she's gonna probably be pretty proud of and try to hang her hat on,
Yeah,
because
Sandra, and not
they're not
just
gonna host a game. There's not gonna be any more games in Red Bull this season for Gotham.
and no more games at Red Bull for Gotham, and it's Carly Lloyd's last match there. And yeah, you mentioned she got the game, Sandra, but you did not put the glitter and the sparkles around this goal that Carly Lloyd had. Because if you imagine Carly Lloyd and her incredible years of being a professional athlete, being on the national team, and all of the goals that she has scored, what is the one thing that is so Carly Lloyd-esque? Cross into the box, hard run from Lloyd, and uses her noggin to put the ball away. And that's exactly what this was. It was like it was like we were playing a video game and everyone was like, Carly Lloyd has to get a goal. And then it was like, Carly Lloyd has to get a goal with her head. Scott Parkinson, I hope you drew that up, because chef's kiss to you, my man, because that was a beautiful play. Eddie with a great cross into the box, and Lloyd doing what Carly Lloyd does exactly right every time she's on the pitch, scoring goals in clutch moments for her team, losing defenders, hard runs into the box, and using her head, making it just look so easy the way she does. Celebrations, you could feel the vibrations from Red Bull Arena vibrating through the screen during this match. So many celebrations for Carly Lloyd, and I'm glad that it ended on this. A little sad it couldn't end a win for Gotham, but I honestly, I don't really care, because I'm glad that Cece Kaiser got another goal, and and I think
And you know
that
what?
Lloyd ending with a goal, it doesn't matter that they lost. It, like, frankly, she's probably sad they lost, but like, they're still playing in the playoffs, and she got that picture perfect goal at home in front of her fans and final regular season. Great job by this team.
Gotham clinching their playoff spot with help from Trinity Rodman and Washington Spirit. Carly Lloyd getting a goal in her final New Jersey match. Louisville ending their season undefeated in their last two matches.
Heck yeah.
Cece Kaiser starting off, ending her year the way she started it off, by scoring goals for Racing Louisville. So those were some of the main takeaways coming out of the final regular season match in NWSL. What a ride, Lisa! I cannot believe we got through 24-ish weeks of NWSL action, 82 matches over on Paramount Plus. It's been exciting. With the conclusion of the regular season, we have our first official award locked in place. Ashley Hatch, it's officially hers, the 2021 NWSL Golden Boot winner, locking up the award with 10 goals on the season. She scored 4 with each of her feet, left and right, and then got 2 on a header. So congrats to Hatch on officially locking that up. The playoff picture is set, y'all. It is Chicago taking on Gotham FC, number 4 versus number 5. That match is going to take place at SeatGeek Stadium at 3 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. Washington Spirit will host North Carolina Courage, number 3 versus number 6, at Audi Field, 5:30 p.m. Eastern on Paramount Plus. Portland Thorns and OL Reign get the bye week, so they have a straightaway to the semifinals, which will also take place on CBS Sports Network on November the 14th. We will have so much more for you all in terms of a preview of all of these matches, but mainly the quarterfinals coming up. Lisa, we did it. Let's hit it. Thanks, everybody, for listening. As always, a quick reminder, you can follow us on Twitter at Attacking Third. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to your shows. If you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with a question, Lisa and I will answer it as part of our mailbag segment, and we are also available as video. So subscribe to us on YouTube. Head on over to youtube.com/Attacking Third and hit subscribe. Lisa and I will be back Wednesday with the return of our mailbag segment and more playoff buildup. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.